Welcome. My name is Mary Watts, and I'm the LIHWAP Policy Branch Chief with the Office of Community Services. Today, we are going to be providing a quick training on a new tool to help with the LIHWAP annual report. This tool is completely optional and will hopefully help alleviate some of the manual checks required in the completion of the LIHWAP annual report, which is currently an Excel-based report. We will go over each of the three sections and the tool associated with the section to check for inconsistencies in the data. I will now share my screen and start reviewing the tool. All right, so on the screen, you see the first tab, which is the recipient information. This is currently just the contact information, similar to what you have reported on in the quarterly report. There are no checks on this page, so I will jump to the use of funds section. Now I will move to section 2, which is the uses of LIHWAP household benefit funds. You're reporting on your benefit funds in two separate ways. The first way you're reporting on it is by assistance by priority type, meaning restoration of services, prevention of disconnection, and reduction of rates charged. Below, you're also reporting the same benefits, but based on service type. So whether it was water or wastewater, multiple water services, or other water services. There are a few different checks on this section, mostly referring to the actual expended amount featured in this column D. The first check that I want to make you aware of is that the expended amounts in both the sections for priority group must equal the expended amounts for the sections in the service type. For example, the following 6 cells will need to equal the sum of the 6 cells below. Now you will notice on the checks tab on column 9, on row 9, there it says does not check. And that is because the cells that I just highlighted are actually not summing and equaling the total. So I have to go back and look at where I'm missing. So you can do a sum tab and try to figure out which ones are not calculating altogether. Another thing I wanted to point out is I have 0 for other water services. That's because in my implementation plan, I did not have any other water services approved. So that number remains 0. A couple of the other checks that are important in this section is just verifying that your benefits that are actually expended do not exceed the total amount of your award for the specific Consolidated Appropriations Act and the American Rescue Act. If they do not exceed, your check will be under the green tab where it says checks. So for example, those are all right on mine, they say checks. The other one that says that does not check is referring to the administrative costs for the Consolidated Appropriations Act is exceeding 15% of the administration total award. So I can go back to the cell numbers 87E and 95E to verify which ones are incorrect. So scrolling down to 87E, I see that I have 108,000 and then an 89,000 mark. So those cannot exceed the total amount of the administrative funds. When I put those together, that's $198,000. So going back up to the section at the top, which has the actual amount, it does exceed that in that section. So therefore it will not check. And the other sections all check, so I know that I'm good to go and I can move on to the next tab. For the next tab, we're going to go over the household report, and I will have Rachel Hammond present that section.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Hammond. I'm a program specialist with the LIHWAP team. And so looking at the household report tab, this is where you will report information on the number of households served by various metrics. The checks for this section will ensure consistent reporting on the number of households served. In sections 1 and 2, you report the total number of households served in various ways. First, we're looking at the number of unduplicated applicants, applicants that were actually assisted, and anyone who is waitlisted. In this section, we will consistently be referring back to this 500 number on total unduplicated households assisted. The next section breaks out the total number of households served by assistance type. So whether someone received restoration of services, prevention of disconnection of services, or a reduction of their current rates charged. The first three checks on this tab here ensure that the number of households served by assistance type match in sections 2 and 3. For example, the total number of households served in each poverty level for restoration of services should add up to the total reported in restoration of services in section 2. Here you can see that we've reported 300 total households receiving restoration of services by poverty type, and this does match the 300 reported households in section 2. The next three checks ensure that the number of households served by assistance type in section 4 does not exceed those reported in section 2. The households reported as receiving any type of assistance and having any member of a target group in column G should not exceed the number of households reported in section 2. It could be less than what is reported in section 2, as not all households served could have a member of a target group in their home. For example, this report shows 100 households with a member of a target group that received restoration of services. This checks because it is less than the 300 households reported in section 2 as receiving restoration of services. That covers through row 18 on the checks tab. We then have 18 checks that ensure the number of households reported for each race, ethnicity, and gender option in the following sections match. Looking at the report, you will see that in sections 5 and 6, we ask you to report on household applicants by race, ethnicity, and gender. In section 7, we ask you to report on assisted households by housing type. We then ask about race, ethnicity, and gender again, but this time for all household members and not just the applicants. That is what these checks will be looking at. The total household members reported for each race, gender, and ethnicity option in sections 8 and 9 must be greater than or equal to the number of applicants reported for each race, ethnicity, and gender option in sections 5 and 6. This is because household members include the applicant, so you should always have at least that information reported in sections 8 and 9. For example, we reported that 200 household applicants were of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origins. That means that we should have at least 200 household members in section 8 that are of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origins. Scrolling down, I can see that indeed we do have 200 members reported here, and this will check. Finally, there are checks on the totals reported in sections 5 through 9, such as these bolded numbers here where it says total auto-calculated. The total assisted applicants for race, ethnicity, gender, and housing type should equal the total households assisted in section 1. Scrolling back up, we can see that we reported 500 total unduplicated households assisted. That is what we want these sections to match. Scrolling back down, I can see that when we look at the total number of household applicants by race and ethnicity, it sums to 500. Same with race, sums to 500. This means that they match and the checks will work out on the checks tab. Additionally, the total assisted household members for each race, ethnicity, and gender should be greater than or equal to that 500 total households assisted reported in section 1. So scrolling down, we can again see that we have 500 for assisted household members by race and ethnicity. Let's take a look at some of the checks to see if there's anything that I need to double check on this tab. The first thing I notice is here where it says the sum of households by poverty level for reduction of current rates is not equal to the total reduction of current rates in section 2. Going back to the household tab, I can see that in section 2, I reported 100 households received reduction of current rates charged. Going down to section 3, when I add up each of the households in the poverty guidelines, I see that it only sums to 73. That's why the tab is showing that it does not check. After looking back, I realized I meant to put 30 here instead of 3. Now, these sum up to 100 and match what is reported in section 2. Going back to the checks tab, we can see this now checks. Scrolling down, it seems that I have another error in section 5. it says that the Asian household applicants cannot exceed reported Asian household members. So let's go check and see what's in there. In section 5, under race, I reported 80 household applicants who reported that they were Asian. Scrolling down, I put 0 for number of household members in section 8. This does not match and is why we're getting the error. I probably should have put in 80 since I was reporting on the household members. Now you will see that this equals 500 and this now checks. Finally, it seems like there's one more error that I have in here. Total household members by gender must be greater than or equal to unduplicated counts of household assisted. Let's see what I have in row 85. Here it shows that I have 509 household members reported, and it looks like I accidentally put a 9 in the self-identified female. This probably should have been a 0 since I reported 500 as unknown or not reported. Changing this to a 0 fixes the check, and this section is good to go. I'll hand it back to Mary to go over the last tab, performance measures.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, so we have one last section to go over, and this has only 3 separate checks. So in this first section, you have the water burden targeting, and there's actually no checks associated with this section. The only checks associated are actually referring to the unduplicated counts, making sure that they match the unduplicated counts reported in the household report. So let me go to the checks tab. So it looks like 15B checks, but it looks like 22B and 29B do not check. So let me go see what's going on there. All right, so 22B, I have 179 unduplicated reported for those that were prevented from disconnection. So let me go to the household report. So it looks like I actually only have 100 that are reported here. So those need to check and be the same. So I need to go back and fix my performance measures to see what happened. All right, so it looks like I put in the wrong numbers here. So I would go back and verify my data and correct that so it would equal a total of 100. So for example, this could just be 79 and then 21, and then let's see if it checks, and it does. So the other one reported is 29B does not check. So 29B refers to the rate reduction. So I have 48 reported here. So I have to go to the household report to see the total number. And it's actually 100. So I need to correct that. So it looks like I had none for other water services. So it looks like here I messed up the numbers, and I would correct it here and see if it checks out now. And it does. So those are the only checks for performance measures. And that's referring to the unduplicated counts, making sure they match the unduplicated reported in the household report. All right, now that is the completion of the checks tool. And just as a heads up, we will be talking about the checks tool in our next webinar in January, focusing on the training for the LIHWAP annual report, as well as the office hours that we will be hosting in January. So please feel free to sign up for those to ask questions and get more information on the tool. And once again, this tool is completely voluntary and is just meant to help assist in the LIHWAP annual report completion and submission. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy your rest of your day.